Minglawa and welcome to MI Radio's Myanmar Today. I am Agajo. Today we have reports on Amyotha Hluttaw approving amendment to government's procurement and selling of property bill. Few local travelers visiting the tourism sites, tourism-related businesses facing difficulties. Beijing downgrading COVID-19 emergency response level from 2 to 3. And the update of COVID-19 cases reaching 343 cases with 280 recoveries in Myanmar. All of that on this edition of Myanmar Today, but for now, let's take a look at what's happening in local news. An inspection team of Myanmar National Human Rights Commission, led by its member Wu So, visited the Tayep prison yesterday to ensure there was no violation of human rights. During the inspection tour, they also inspected the custodies of court, the police station of the township. The members of MNHRC inspected the prison cells, medical ward, water tanks, visiting rooms, and preparations for COVID-19 prevention. They met several inmates individually and asked them if there had been violations of human rights, difficulties in prison visits, access to basic necessities, and human rights situation in the prison. With a long-time closure of Myanmar-India border, including Tamil-Mori border, Rikoda and Sukhota border, caused by spreading of the coronavirus across the country, the weaving businesses were suspended for lack of raw materials in the India imported market, according to the weaving entrepreneurs from Gali Township. There are more than 1,500 manageable scale weaving businesses in Clay Township. These businesses are weaving mostly the Chin traditional clothes in Hakka, Didin, Palan, Mizo, and Zotong. These businesses rely upon Indian cotton produced and imported from India through India border. The weaving businesses are being faced with the lack of raw cotton after restricting the crossing of the Myanmar-India border because of the COVID-19 starting from March. The Indian millers have requested their government to extend the deadline for black bean import up to March 2021. This being so, there is a possibility of a deadline extension set by traders from pulses and beans market. The domestic traders are closely observing the market with the changes in India's policy on bean importation. Now the growers have already sold out the beans and they're in the hands of traders. They have stockpiled around 120,000 through 150,000 tons of black beans. Some traders are holding the stocks as they expect high price. The trading is quite cool in the export market. The prices of the black bean are pegged at around 970,000 through 980,000 chats per ton on 22nd of July. Myanmar's exports of natural gas over the past 8 months of the current financial year amounted to $2.4 billion, the Commerce Ministry's data showed. The figures reflect a decrease of over $400 million compared with the corresponding period of 2018 and 2019 fiscal, according to the Commerce Ministry. The drop in the value of the exports is linked to the collapse of the global oil and natural gas prices, according to an expert. Natural gas is included in the list of major export items of Myanmar. Over 10% of the country's total export earnings come from the sale of natural gas. There are 53 onshore blocks and 51 offshore blocks, totaling 104 blocks. A total of 25 onshore blocks and 31 offshore blocks are operating under foreign investment. That's all with the local news. Now we will move on to our first report. Amyotha Hluttaw approved the government's procurement and selling of property bill with additional amendments at the 5th-day meeting of its 17th regular session. Pyodirutu has more.
The 17th regular session of Amyotha Hluttaw kept on its 5th-day meeting yesterday. At the meeting, Amyotha Hluttaw approved the government's procurement and selling of property bill, which has already been discussed and analyzed by the Bill Committee and the Hluttaw representatives to reduce the losses of national revenue to be effective in selling of government's property. At the meeting, Brigadier General Dinwe, Tamil representative and member of Amyotha Hluttaw's Bill Committee freshly clarified and reported the government's procurement and selling of property bill.
Amyotha Hluttaw ဥပဒေကြမ်းကော်မတီသည်အစိုးရ၏ဝယ်ယူခြင်းနှင့်ပုံသေးပိုင်းပစ္စည်းများထုခွဲခြင်းဆိုင်ရာဥပဒေကြမ်းပေါ်အကြံပြုဆွေးနွေးခဲ့သည့် Amyotha Hluttaw ကိုယ်စားလှယ်များသက်ဆိုင်ရာဝန်ကြီးဌာနများ
Amyotha Hluttaw's Bill Committee presented the report on the government's procurement and selling of property bill to Hluttaw representative on 25th of May 2020. Amyotha Hluttaw representative discussed and suggested the bill on 1st of June 2020. Amyotha Hluttaw's Bill Committee has met with Hluttaw representative who discussed and suggested the bill, the officials from the Ministry of Planning, Finance and Industry, the Ministry of Construction and Supreme Court on 9th of July 2020. According to the suggestion from Hluttaw representative, Amyotha Hluttaw's Bill Committee evaluated the government's procurement and selling of property bill in details and received an agreement with Hluttaw representative and the officials. So, Amyotha Hluttaw's Bill Committee sought approvals for the government's procurement and selling of property bill amendment.
Amyotha Hluttaw Speaker U.T. Kumyat asked the Hluttaw representatives to seek approvals for each amendment on the government's procurement and selling of property bill. Amyotha Hluttaw representatives agreed to add and amend the description of subsections and 71 sections in the bill. Mawin, Deputy Minister from the Ministry of Planning, Finance and Industry, submitted the proposal to approve the government's procurement and selling of property bill with the additional amendments.
အစိုးရ၏ဝယ်ယူခြင်းနှင့်ပုံသေးပိုင်းပစ္စည်းများထုခွဲခြင်းလုပ်ငန်းဆောင်ရွက်မှုများတွင်ပွင့်လင်းမြင်သာမှုမျှတမှုနှင့်ရှင်ပြိုင်မှုများတိုးတက်ဖြစ်ပေါ်စေရန်အစိုးရ၏ဝယ်ယူခြင်းနှင့်ပုံသေးပိုင်းပစ္စည်းများ
The government's procurement and selling of property bill is intended to reduce the losses of national revenue, to be effective in selling of government's property, to participate in tendering with qualified businesses for government's project, to be transparent, fair and competitive, to improve the responsibility and accountability of local businesses in government's property procuring and selling processes. The Ministry of Planning, Finance and Industry sought approvals for the government's procurement and selling of property bill with additional amendments to Amyotha Hluttaw.
Then, Sohain, Amyotha Hluttaw representative from constituency 7 of the Nindai region, discussed and supported the proposal to approve the government's procurement and selling of property bill with the additional amendments. Amyotha Hluttaw approved the government's procurement and selling of property bill with additional amendments at the 50th meeting of its 17th regular session. I am Pyoti Ritu. This is news reporting from MR Radio.
That's a report on Amyotha Hluttaw approving amendment to government's procurement and selling of property bill. Hotels in Myanmar, which have been suspended due to the COVID-19 outbreak, have already resumed operation for the sake of the local travelers since June. Before the opening of the international airlines, hotels and tourism sites for the satisfaction of the stressed local people are on the way to reopen along with the health guidelines and instructions issued by the relevant authorities. Also, the domestic tourism is being planned to relaunch back soon, according to the Ministry of Hotels and Tourism.
Hotels in Myanmar, which have been suspended due to the COVID-19 outbreak, have already resumed operation for the sake of the local travelers since June. Before the opening of the international airlines, hotels and tourism sites for the satisfaction of the stressed local people are on the way to reopen, along with the health guidelines and instructions issued by the relevant authorities. Also, the domestic tourism is being planned to relaunch back soon, according to the Ministry of Hotels and Tourism. There are all around 1,600 hotels reopening, along with the guidelines issued by the Ministry of Health and Sports. As there are no visitors, hotels are facing losses because their income is much lower than the general expenses and costs for employees. Services that have to rely on tourism include trishaw drivers, cart drivers, sellers, and handicrafts makers. Their reoperation of businesses also depends on the opening of the tourism sites. Under Myanmar's September 2018 tourism law, regional authorities can decide the closures or opening of the hotels in their respective areas. Regional government authority can grant more license for hotels, tour companies, tour guides, and transportation operators. The ministry relaxed taxes on tourism businesses for 6 months, postponed rental fees for affected state-owned hotels for 6 months, and put aside license fees for 1 year. U Min-jo-u, General Secretary of Myanmar Hotelier Association, said.
Regarding the Ministry of Hotels and Tourism, there are over 1,200 hotels reopened, which are 50 to 60% of all hotels around the country. Hotels in Changda and Wesam beaches are checked for the safety by regional government on 23rd and 24th July. Starting from 2015, tourism industries have expected the improvements in tourism sector. Almost every hotel tourism-related business are operating with bank loans. Due to the COVID-19 outbreak, the closure of those sites takes long. Businesses are facing difficulties in debt settlements. No visitors make even harder to pay for bank interest and other taxes. Just because of the relaxed rules issued by the MOHT, we can stand on our own.
The preventive health measures and the instructed guidelines are processed in some hotels, but some still found difficulties in following the rules. To perform the social distancing plans in hotels, Destination Management Organization DMO has founded a regional tourism committee. U Angtongkai, manager of Amazing Changda Resort, said.
We focus on the protection of both our staffs and customers. Especially, we seriously prohibit the gathering of more than 5 people. We provide room service for each room, and moreover, only one staff with protective equipment, which includes face shields, masks, and gloves, will be able to enter room for cleaning. The government has issued rules to organize the maintenance teams along with beach. It monitors the visitors whether they break the rules in banning of the gathering more than 5 people, and there will be a fine of 10,000 kyats for each person if violation found.
The government launched the reopening of the tourism-related businesses by relaxing regional orders starting from June and will continue through August. The government hopes to begin the allowance of foreign tourist arrivals between August and January of 2021. Northai Taiton, travel blogger from Travel by Northai Facebook page, said.
I want to go to beaches and mountains with fine weather for my upcoming trip. I think as there are no foreign travelers in the country and also local residents have been staying in their houses for a long time, they want to go on trips and the local tourism will improve. People would choose sites that has easy transportation and fair weather like Kalor, Pa'an, and Bagan. The interest in unpopular tourism sites like Mogo, Gaba, Yin and Zhao are also increasing now.
When the domestic travelers start visiting local tourism sites, not only hotels but also other tourism-related businesses will profit from the gradual increase in the number of visitors.
Thus, a report on few local travelers visiting the tourism sites and tourism-related businesses facing difficulties. No new domestically transmitted COVID-19 cases have been found in Beijing for several days as of now, even though residents in medium and high-risk level regions are still under strict outbound travel restrictions. Beijing downgrades COVID-19 emergency response level from 2 to 3. Reporter David Tanner got the details.
Beijing recorded no new domestically transmitted COVID-19 case on Saturday for the sixth day in a row. The total number of cases stands at 335 since the cluster outbreak was discovered at Shinfadi Market on 11th of June, the Municipal Health Commission said on Sunday. 11 more patients recovered on Saturday, taking the total number of recoveries to 95. Beijing also registered no new cases on Saturday, the Municipal Health Commission added. So far, 21 patients are under medical observation. As situation in the Chinese capital stabilizes, more regions are lowering COVID-19 risk levels. As of Sunday afternoon, there is 9 regions labeled as medium risk across Fangdai and Daxing districts, and a single high-risk region, Fangdai district, and where Shinfadi Market is located. Residents in the medium and high-risk level regions are still under strict outbound travel restrictions. Amyotha Hluttaw will add on more about the latest update on Beijing's activities regarding COVID-19.
ဘေဂျင်းမှာ COVID-19 ကူးစက်မှုအသစ်မတွေ့ရှိတာရက်အတော်ကြာခဲ့ပါပြီ။ဒီဘေဂျင်းအနှံ့ပြားမှာရှိတဲ့မြို့လူထုတွေကိုလည်းယောဂဖြစ်ပွားနိုင်ခြေရှိမရှိပေါ်မူတည်ပြီးတော့ပေါ့နော်။ယောဂရှာဖွေတိုက်တာစစ်ဆေးမှုတွေကိုကြက်ကြက်ပြန့်ပြန့်လှုံ့ဆော်ပြီးပါပြီ။ဒါကြောင့်အခုလ20ရက်နေ့ကနေစပြီးတော့ဘေဂျင်းမြို့မှာဆိုရင်တော့အများပြည်သူကျန်းမာရေးအရေးပေါ်အခြေအနေအဆင့်ကိုအဆင့်2ကနေအဆင့်3ကိုပြင်ဆင်သတ်မှတ်ပြီးလိုက်ပါပြီ။
13 patients have recently recovered, taking the total number of recoveries to 203. In addition, all serious and critical COVID-19 patients have recovered. With the downgrading of the emergency response level, Beijing will gradually begin to hold conventions, exhibitions, sports events, and performances, adding that cinemas in the city will also be reopened with limitations on the number of visitors. Gatherings of up to 500 people will be allowed if they meet the requirements of COVID-19 prevention. Parks, tourist attractions, gyms, libraries, and museums will also be reopened with the limitations of the number of visitors. Nucleic acid amplification testing requires respiratory samples from the patient because COVID-19 is a respiratory virus. Swabs are most commonly used. Bronchoalveolar lavage fluid are also used if a patient has pneumonia or lung involvement with infection. Samples are then processed and tested for COVID-19. The test includes extraction of RNA from the patient specimen, conversion to DNA, and PCR amplification with COVID-19 specific primers. With that said, Amyotha Hluttaw also told MI Radio more about the current processes in China's National Health Commission attempt to increase the tools of nucleic acid amplification testing tools and systems.
nucleic acid စစ်ဆေးမှုစွမ်းအားတိုးမြင့်နိုင်ဖို့အတွက်တရုတ်နိုင်ငံတော်ကျန်းမာရေးကော်မရှင်ကနေစေဝင်တန်း200ကျော်ပါဝင်တဲ့ပြည်နယ်10ခုက nucleic acid ဒိုင်းတာစစ်ဆေးရေးစေဝါကုသရေးအဖွဲ့10ဘွဲကိုရှင်းကျအောင်ချက်ချင်းစီလွတ်ထားတယ်လို့သိရပါတယ်။တရုတ်နိုင်ငံအနေနဲ့ကတော့ COVID-19 ကူးစက်ရောဂါနဲ့ပတ်သက်ပြီးတော့ case အနည်းငယ်ကိုတော့မှာပေါ့နော်သူတို့ပြင်းပြင်းထန်ထန်တင်းတင်းကြပ်ကြပ်နှိမ်နှင်းနေတာကိုတွေ့နေရပါတယ်ရှင်။
Reporter David Tanner reporting from Myanmar International Radio.
That's a report on Beijing downgrading COVID-19 emergency response level from 2 to 3. High schools around the country started to open since the 20th of July with the help of the Ministry of Health and Sports and the Ministry of Education. Health authorities also urged the people to stay vigilant against the spread of the COVID-19 recently as the infections around the world are incredibly higher. To prevent the second wave in the country, returnees and local people participation is very important right now. Bomo has more.
The people have started back to their work in a new normal lifestyle, and some of the high schools around the country have started to open since 20th July with the help of the Ministry of Health and Sports and the Ministry of Education. Health authorities also urged the people to stay vigilant against the threat of the COVID-19 recently, as the infections around the world are incredibly higher. In the current situation, Myanmar can almost control the first wave, but to prevent the second wave in the country, returnees and local people participation are very important right now. Dr. Sidhu Lin, specialist from the Yangon Workers Hospital, reviewed the COVID-19 situation. He said,
In a current situation, our country can be said to be in a lower level, but we can't stay carelessly as the COVID-19 is a global pandemic and long-term infections. We can pass the first wave and we have to pass the second wave too. The returnees have increased in number. Coincidentally, schools are reopened and some quarantine centers have gone. A disease wave can attack if we fail to make them self-quarantine. The Ministry of Health and Sports are doing best in the action. There are about 300,000 people staying facility quarantine at the quarantine centers, and there are fever clinics in 17 townships of Yangon. As our country is in better situation comparing to the other countries and people tend to become careless, there are still many people infected without showing any symptoms. Everyone needs to be careful, wear the mask and wash their hands properly.
Union Minister of the Ministry of Health and Sports Dr. Myanmar and the Union Minister of the Ministry of Education Dr. Amyotha Hluttaw also checked the surprise inspection to the high schools whether they follow the guidelines. As part of the prevention of the spread of the COVID-19, students and teachers have to wear the masks, face shield, and get their temperature measured before they enter the schools. The union minister also released the notices for the parents and students to follow the guidelines of the Ministry of Health and Sports. U Aung Naithorn, Region Hluttaw representative from Tan Lien Township, spoke to MI Radio. He said,
as the school have started to reopen, we educated the school teachers and students with the help of Township COVID-19 Committee. The students have to wear masks and parents have to follow the guidelines according to the announcement from the Ministry of Health and Sports. People participation is very important right now. They have to deal with new normal lifestyle and even the children have to do. I know that it is not easy for them to change, but we have to change our daily habits to prevent the infections.
According to the data from the Ministry of Health and Sports, the National Laboratory in Yangon, Departments of the Medical Research, Public Health Laboratory in Mandalay and Molamyai tested a total of 1,147 suspected persons. Since late March, the Ministry of Health and Sports has tested a total of 105,635 persons. Among the Southeast Asian countries, Philippines and Indonesia are the highest COVID-19 confirmed cases, according to the data from Johns Hopkins Coronavirus Resource Center. Myanmar has reported 343 COVID-19 confirmed cases with 6 deaths and 280 recoveries. Mazima, resident from Yangon, spoke to MI Radio. She said,
ဦးဆုံးဖြစ်တော့ကတော့အရန်စိုးရင်တာပေါ့နော်အိမ်ကလူအိမ်မားလည်းလူကြီးတွေရှိရဆိုတော့အဖွားနဲ့နေတာဆိုတော့လေအဖွားအတွက်လည်းစိုးရင်လည်းပြီးတော့သားလည်းရှိရဆိုတော့သားလေးအတွက်လည်းစိုးရင်
People around my place begin their works and daily activities. Children have started their high school with their new normal lifestyle. Living in new normal lifestyle is not very hard in the current situation because the major infection came from the returnees. But I'm sometimes afraid of the similar infection for my children. So I keep myself and to my family to prevent the disease. There are no returnees in my surrounding, and if there is one, I will report to the Reliever Ministry immediately.
That's the update of COVID-19 cases, reaching 343 cases with 280 recoveries in Myanmar. And that's all we have for today's reports, and it's time to check on some international news here on Myanmar Today. Chinese President Xi Jinping, also General Secretary of the Communist Party of China Central Committee, urged more effective measures to protect black soil, a high-nutrient soil that is the most suitable to grow crops. President Xi on Wednesday inspected northeast China's Jilin province and made the remarks while visiting the demonstration zone and farmers cooperative at a green food production base in Lishu County of Sipin City. Northeast China, one of the world's 3 major Shinozan regions, is a major area for maize-soybean farming, where black soil produces high yields, but declining soil fertility remains a problem. Blasting off the 4th Long March 5 rocket made history, sending China's first Mars probe into the Earth-Mars transfer orbit. This is the first time the Long March 5 carrier rocket is put into practical use after 3 experimental launches. China's first Mars mission is called Tianwen-1 Quest for Heavenly Truth. The probe consists of not only an orbiter, but also a lander and a rover, a trifecta no other nation has accomplished on its first Mars mission. After another 7 months of flight, the probe is expected to reach the red planet's orbit around February 2021. The orbiter will stay in the orbit for scientific operations and signal relay, while the lander-rover combination will try to make a soft landing on the Mars surface.
Blasting off, the fourth Long March 5 rocket made history, sending China's first Mars probe.
It means China's aerospace has taken a key step towards the deep space exploration. Today's success lays a solid foundation for the many successes yet to come.
China's first Mars mission is called Tianwen-1 Quest for Heavenly Truth. The probe consists of not only an orbiter but also a lander and a rover, a trifecta no other nation has accomplished on its first Mars mission.
This is hard one. We have 10 years of research and generations of the aerospace researchers have contributed to this great success of such a Mars probe mission.
After another 7 months of flight, the probe is expected to reach the red planet's orbit around February 2021. The orbiter will stay in the orbit for scientific operations and signal relay, while the lander-rover combination will try to make a soft landing on the Mars surface. There are 13 different payloads on the Chinese Mars probe, including 7 on the orbiter and 6 on the lander.
These payloads are to study the Martian atmosphere
surface. There are 13 different payloads on the Chinese Mars probe, including 7 on the orbiter and 6 on the lander.
These payloads are to study the Martian atmosphere, weather, geological structure, and so on.
Many global space agencies and organizations have also participated in China's Mars mission.
So we are on the rover, so scientific from France are in the rover. In the spectrometer, China offers great opportunity, and we offer them some expertise in niche domains or in other fields, and is very much complementary. So we are very, very much satisfied.
And also we are willing to explore the magnetosphere and its interaction with the solar wind on Mars.
The China National Space Administration says Tianwen-1 opens a new chapter in the country's interplanetary Wenchang spacecraft launch site.
The chances of the UK and the European Union securing a free trade agreement this year have been rated as unlikely by the EU's chief negotiator, while the UK side said a deal could still be reached in September. Britain officially left the EU in January, and since then, talks on the trade agreement and other future ties have often looked to be struggling. With the Brexit transition period, which has effectively left the UK-EU trading and travel arrangements unchanged despite the UK leaving, coming to an end on 31st of December 2020, the latest round of negotiations was seen as key for a possible agreement. And that's all we have for you today. Thanks for joining me on Myanmar Today. I am Agajo. Have a great day, everyone. Stay home, stay safe. Goodbye.